Hi, my name is Adam Whitmer. I'm the founder and host of ComplianceCohort.com. This compliance clip is going to talk about what is an abusive act or practice under UDAP. Now, unfair and deceptive or abusive acts and practices has been something that's been around for years under the UDAP without the A for abusive, so unfair and deceptive acts and practices. In fact, unfair and deceptive have had long established three-pronged tests that really date back a couple of decades, and because the Unfair and Deceptive Act and Practices rules come from the Federal Trade Commission Act that dates back to the early 1900s. So, in other words, we've had years and years of court cases and understanding of what is an unfair or a deceptive act or practice. Abusive, on the other hand, is different. The abusive standard was implemented with the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010. And so this is a more recent development as it relates to UDAP, which means that financial institutions have struggled to understand the ins and outs of abusive. So our question today is, what is abusive under the Unfair and Deceptive Acts and Practices rule as it relates to financial institutions? Now, the Dodd-Frank Act defined an abusive act or practice as being something that materially interferes with the ability of a consumer to understand a term or condition of a financial product or service. In addition, it would take unreasonable advantage of the lack of understanding of a consumer regarding material risks, costs, or conditions. It would take unreasonable advantage of the inability of a consumer to protect their own interests, or it would take unreasonable advantage of reasonable reliance by the consumer for a covered person to act in the consumer's best interest. So this is the guidance that we received with the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, telling us what is an abusive act or practice. Now, for over a decade, financial institutions wondered, what does this really mean? Because this is pretty broad, this is pretty general. And in fact, the unfair prong and the deceptive prong of UDAP both have two three-prong tests. So there's a separate three-prong test for unfair and a separate three-prong test for deceptive that help us further understand these provisions of UDAP. Abusive, however, did not have this additional guidance. Well, in early 2023, the CFPB issued a policy statement that explains the legal prohibitions on abusive conduct in consumer financial markets, and it summarizes a decade of their experience and how they are interpreting the abusive standard under UDAP. Now, this policy statement, what it does is it provides financial institutions with guidance that is a bit similar to the long-standing three-pronged test for both unfair and deceptive, and it helps give us a little bit more information than what we had specifically from the rule. So, in a general form, and all we really have time for in this short compliance clip is what we've discussed so far. So the basics that are found in the Dodd-Frank Act is what an abusive act or practice is. But if you want more information, the CFPB has provided this policy statement that takes a little bit deeper dive in breaking down those pieces of what in fact is an abusive act or practice. Now, if you're interested in taking an even deeper dive into the abusive standard of UDAP and really UDAP as a whole, we have a new program in our store that's called our UDAP Bootcamp. And this program covers everything related to unfair, deceptive, and abusive acts and practices. Now, of course, UDAP is important because this is a high-risk area in most financial institutions. The reason it's high risk is really twofold. First and foremost is the rule is still evolving. As we saw in 2023, we saw additional guidance from the CFPB as it relates to the abusive prong of UDAP. In 2022, we saw some new trends as what the regulators were identifying as an unfair and deceptive or abusive act and practice as it relates to non-sufficient fund fees, multiple representment items, and overdraft fees in general. So, and even before that, we saw some different changes with the CFPB's interpretation of UDAP applying to deposit accounts, but there's been some court cases that have changed that. So the rule in and of itself is very evolving. It's changing on a regular basis. And this program brings us up to date into the current environment of unfair, deceptive, or abusive acts and practices. Now, the second reason that UDAP is high risk is it's very difficult to identify those specific acts or practices that elevate your risk of a UDAP violation. What the guidance that's provided to us does is it does a really good job of helping us determine whether an already identified act or practice is in fact a UDAP violation. So something we've already identified, is it in fact a violation of the UDAP rules? What the guidance doesn't do is help point us in the direction of examples that could be considered a violation of UDAP. So what we've done in our program is we are talking about, of course, the rules, and this is how we structured our program. Is the first half is we talk about the rules. We talk about unfair, deceptive, and abusive, and look at the guidance. And we talk about how complaints relates to this, how it relates to other laws, and then the second half of the program, I think this is the most beneficial piece of our UDAP bootcamp, is we look at over 50 identified and known UDAP violations, or things that can elevate your risk of UDAP. And we look at both deposit UDAP concerns as well as lending UDAP concerns. And we've compiled this list of well over 50 items, and I go through as the instructor talking about these items. So really trying to attack this program from the two reasons why UDAP is such a high risk and so challenging is, number one, the rules have been evolving. So the first half we talk about the rules. And then secondly, it's hard to identify issues as it relates to UDAP. So the second half of our program, which is quite long, talks about over 50 potential violations that you could identify in your organization as it relates to unfair, deceptive, or abusive acts and practices. So if you're interested in taking a really deep dive into unfair and deceptive or abusive acts and practices, take a look at our UDAP Bootcamp in our store. That's found at www.compliancecohort.com/store. So compliancecohort.com/store. So that's it for this compliance clip. We don't always talk about our programs, but we just finished that this week. So at the time of this recording, so we're really excited about this program. So if you want to take a look at our UDAP Bootcamp, it's available. But we do have a bunch of free videos. You don't have to purchase programs from us. We have a membership that's absolutely free. It's our basic membership where we offer really hundreds of videos just like this that are considered compliance clips that are supposed to be between 3 and 5 minutes, so I often run long in talking about various topics. So those are part of our basic membership. In our basic membership, we also have free articles, over hundreds of articles. We have a weekly newsletter. We do giveaways. We have a bunch of things available, additional resources available for our basic members. And again, if you want to take a deep dive into our programs that we have available, we've got premium memberships and other products that you can find at compliancecohort.com/store. Thanks so much for watching this video to the end. You are the reason we do what we do, and we appreciate you. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, until next time, I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much.